Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. This is the second part of a two-part video on cycling your tank. So if you haven't seen the first part, go back and watch last week's video and then come back and watch this one. Right, let's get back to where we left off. On day 3 I need to check and adjust salinity. As the skimmer fills up, it removes salt water, which then is replaced with fresh water from the auto top-up. So it's essential to keep on top of this and make adjustments throughout the whole process. I also tested my pH and KH again, which were 8.4 and 8.9. This time it says not to add KH coralline grow. It's also time to test ammonia, nitrite and nitrate, and these were reading ammonia 1 ppm, nitrite 0.1 ppm, and nitrate 36 ppm. Therefore it's time to add only half the amount of nitro back as yesterday, so it's just 36 mils today, and NOPOX at the same amount as yesterday. So far, this process has been pretty simple to follow, and the tank looks pretty much the same, therefore it's hard to show you anything of interest. What I will say is that it's nice to have some form of interaction with the tank from day 1, as it doesn't feel like I'm just waiting for the cycle to finish. Day 4 and 5 only required me to add the same amount of NOPOX again. This, however, was when things started to change. Remember I said I would show you the good, the bad and the ugly? Well, today we have the ugly. As you can see, I have the start of a diatom bloom, and some stringy white bacteria has also appeared. This, however, is normal, and the instructions state that by the end of the process they should have disappeared completely. Fortunately for me from an aesthetics point of view, but unfortunately from the ability to document what other people may experience, this was as far as the ugly got throughout the whole process. The reason for this is because I used man-made rock rather than live rock. Therefore, some of the more biological reactions expected during the cycle, such as algae growth and diatoms, were significantly reduced. Every tank is slightly different, and your tank may progress at a slightly faster or slightly slower rate than the program states. Day 7 came around and it was time for the first water change. The instructions state I need to remove 5%, which is just 18 litres, and then check and adjust the temperature and salinity. Something which I'd like to point out is for people to calibrate their refractometers every time. All refractometers can lose calibration reasonably quickly, which can give you a false reading. They're a very sensitive piece of equipment, and even the slightest temperature change can affect the results, therefore holding them by only touching the plastic parts is advised. The process continued pretty much the same until day 10, when things started to get interesting. I checked ammonia and nitrate, which were both showing as 0, and nitrate was showing as 10. This means the tank has essentially cycled in 9 days, as I'm not counting day 1. But more importantly, today's the day that I finally get to add cleanup crew. Now I'm fully aware that my system has virtually nothing in it for the cleanup crew to eat, which is why I added just a single hermit crab from my other tank. He's kinda like a canary, and although the water parameters are all reading correctly, this will definitively prove that the water can sustain life. I added him to a compartment in the sump initially to make sure that I could get him enough food, and when the tank has a little more algae growth, I'll start to add more cleanup crew. When it comes to cleanup crew, I prefer to start with less and gradually add more rather than getting too many and letting them starve. Unfortunately, at this point in the process I became pretty sick, therefore I continued to follow the program. However, there was a slight delay with adding fish, which should have been added around day 14, which didn't happen until day 21. By this point my lonesome hermit crab was still going strong, but there was still very little other life in the tank, which is ideal for me because it means I'm starting with a virtually clean slate when I add my first fish. It just so happened that another YouTuber was with me for this momentous occasion, therefore Mindy from Mindy's Coral Reef joined me at the fish shop. The instructions state that it must be a herbivore. The reason for this is because by now, if you started with live rock, your tank would likely contain some sort of algae growth, and a herbivore would consume anything the cleanup crew couldn't handle. Although adding a small tang could cause me aggression issues down the line, we decided to go with a lemon peel mimic tang, who was affectionately nicknamed Cupcake by Mindy's daughter, which as you can tell is a very masculine name, and not one I'm even remotely ashamed to share with you. Although due to unforeseen circumstances I didn't get to stick with the program 100% as I had originally hoped, I'm genuinely glad I did get to try it, and it is how I'll be cycling my new tanks going forward. Using the marine care kit, I was able to test the water to see exactly what part of the process I was at, and when the water was safe to add livestock. And what did surprise me was that I actually found the whole process quite enjoyable, and I honestly believe that from a beginner's perspective, this method of cycling a tank is invaluable, as it teaches you some of the most fundamental skills of owning a reef tank, including understanding, testing, and adjusting water parameters, and especially patience. But more importantly, it's before you can actually kill anything. If you can master these important skills from the beginning, you're off to a very good start. Owning a marine aquarium should be considered a long-term commitment rather than a short-term project, and nothing good happens quickly in this hobby. It can have a very sharp learning curve, and being forced to learn these basics from the very beginning can save you a lot of time, money, and heartache in the long run. If there is one thing which I truly believe everyone should be doing, is testing your water. Your tank may be fine today, and it may be fine tomorrow, but at some point in time it won't be fine, and often when we realise it's too late, especially when it comes to corals. Weekly testing of your water is one of the cornerstones to success as far as I'm concerned, especially with a newer system. The other thing to mention with this process is that by taking note of the goal parameters, as well as the guide, I knew what was meant to be happening in my tank on what days. It gives you a very different mindset and a sense of achievement rather than fear when you see something like the first patch of diatoms or algae growth. I'm now at the point where I can start adding corals to the tank, but I'll save that for a later video. I hope you enjoy watching my video. Please feel free to comment below if you have any questions. If you did enjoy it, why not click that like and subscribe button. Have a good week, and I'll see you next time.